picture this. You wake up in the morning and you start thinking about everything you have to do that day, and you just start getting full of dread, thinking about that meeting, that phone call, that pickup, whatever it might be. And then things start kind of spiraling, and you start realizing there's a lot more that you're dreading that's going on in the world today, maybe in your life, and next thing you know, you're just full of angst. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Welcome to our Lenten meditations for 2025. We're so excited that you joined with us today. Our theme is, there's a psalm for that. And so believe it or not, there is a psalm for angst. So that's what we're going to be jumping into today. We are in Psalm 42. So Kira, let's talk about Psalm 42.
So Psalm 42, I love this psalm because it kind of psychs you out at the beginning. At first, you read, "As the deer pants for flowing water, so my soul longs for the living God." And you think, wow, this person, they're the real deal Christian.
They're very pious.
Very pious,
Yes.
like all they want in life is just to be close to Jesus. And you're like, man, I wish that I was that kind of Christian. And then once you start getting into it a little bit more, it gets a little bit complicated. So even the idea that you'd be like a deer panting for water, that can seem really pretty. But then you think, this is a thirsty animal, like a wild thing. That makes it a little more messy. And then you keep reading and you realize God is not in the picture. And this person is weeping. All they've been eating is their tears. And people are mocking them. And this person is remembering how good life used to be when they would go and worship in community, and now that's not happening.
So there's this, a back and forth a little bit here of, this beautiful image that actually the more you dig into it, the less beautiful it is.
Yes.
And you see the angst that this person is feeling, and they recall those better days. So there's this back and forth.
Yeah. And it works really well with, at the beginning, where we're thinking of streams of living water, and we keep kind of getting deeper and deeper into the psalm. And then we get this image of waves being, tossing you around. And so you can think of it like the tide coming in and out. And that's, I think, what the experience of angst is often like, where you get kind of swept up in it, and it can be a bit cyclical, this feeling of powerlessness. If you've ever been caught in a wave or in a riptide or something like that, which basically anytime I go into the ocean, this is what happens to me. I go too far out and I'm carried off. Or you have a wave crash over you, and there's you don't know what is up or down. And I think that is what the experience of angst is, and that's happening for this person in their faith life.
Yeah, that's really good. So the image of water in this is very notable. It starts out with the stream, but it builds to that deep calling out to deep, which is a pretty known verse.
Beautiful.
It's very beautiful, but often it's kind of isolated. It's like, oh, it's this beautiful, my deep emotions are calling out to deep love. And really it's more of kind of like a hurricane or a storm on the sea. And being angsty often feels like being swept up. You didn't choose for it to happen. It just kind of came upon you. And you could have begun with the best intentions, like a deer, calm by the streams, but then the storm kind of comes in. And that's largely the experience of being human. You don't choose to be anguished all the time, but you turn the news on, you look at Instagram, you look at what's going on in your life, and it feels like a pressure on you. It feels like all of a sudden you're caught in something that you didn't plan on.
You didn't plan on it, and you're not sure how to get out of it. And I think that's like being caught up in an ocean wave. That is very much the case, where you aren't planning the rhythm of those waves. And once you're kind of tossed and turned in the water, it's really hard to get out of it. And you need kind of rescue outside of yourself for that. And so that's how the psalmist kind of turns towards that and tries to address themselves, saying, "Why are you cast down, O my soul? And why are you in turmoil within me? Hope in God. For I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God." So the psalmist has reflected on how good things used to be. They used to kind of go in community to worship, And rather than saying, this is never going to happen again, everything is falling apart and I'm just over it and that's it, the psalmist tries to turn back to this hope, even though there's no evidence for it in the current moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think an idiom that's used in the New Testament is hope against hope. That's always been something that's hard for me to understand. Well, that phonetically isn't making sense.
Right.
I don't understand what's going on here. But here, I think it's kind of capturing that sense of hope against hope. Like I can't even hope right now, but I hope that I can hope one day. That's how distant this hope feels from me. Especially this verse 5 is kind of situated in between, remembering what things were, hoping again, and then an even more kind of dark image of the waves crashing over.
Right. And then it keeps going, talking about, by day the Lord commands his steadfast love, and at night his song is within me, a prayer to the God of my life. And I turn to God and I say, like, where are you? Why have you forgotten me? And I can hear all of these voices of people saying, where is your God as well? There's kind of this mocking crowd around the psalmist. And it ends, that section ends, it's a deadly wound in his bones, which is really strong.
The deepest part of you.
Yeah,
Is a wound.
all the way down to your bones is this the taunting of adversaries, enemies who are saying, where is God? And that's something that the psalmist could be repeating for themselves, saying, I don't know where God is. God used to be with me, and I'm asking him to return, and he's not showing up. So where does that leave me?
Yeah, that's really good. And the only line that's actually repeated in the whole one is the hope in God, my salvation and my God, I will again praise. And I think that's a beautiful message of hope for us today, that when we feel these waves coming over us of angst, of anxiety, of helplessness, of these things happening, that we can remember that our hope is not grounded in these waves that are washing over, that there's a firm foundation.
Yeah, I think about this moment in the New Testament where someone is asking Jesus for healing, I think for their daughter, and they say to Jesus, I believe, help my unbelief. And I think that is kind of what this psalm is. It's saying, I do believe that God is going to do something, but I really need you to help me believe that because it's so hard sometimes. And I think like that is what angst kind of, it brings us up against that hard rock where we realize I can't go any further. And I want to get out of this, but I need a helicopter rescue.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, an image that I've been thinking about, and I think this connects in here, is Jesus being the shepherd that goes after the one.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense for Jesus to go after the one. And sheep are going to have more. So if you leave 99 sheep, they could reproduce very quickly and have another sheep. So you're not really losing that much. But Jesus comes after that person and brings them back, and there's rejoicing over it. And so I think, the temptation is, well, I've just got to pull myself up.
Yes.
And the good news is that you don't.
Right.
The
comes
good shepherd's
after
going to come. Jesus is going to come, and he's going to pull you out. And we believe that that's true even to the grave.
Right.
That the grave is not the end. That Jesus will pull you out of that tomb.
Right. And that's why the psalmist, I think, something that is so hopeful for me in here is it ends with this command to the psalmist saying, hope in God, for I shall again praise him, my salvation and my God. It's not saying I'm in that moment right now. It's saying there is a hope to come and God is going to make this happen for me. Yeah. And that can be the anchor.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I think that's a great place for us to end today. Thanks so much for joining. We're super excited about the rest of the series.